Hi, all. I'm Elizabeth Pinio, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Maryland, College Park in Information Studies. I'm presenting today on my poster titled Accessibility in Music Archives for Neurodivergent Users, Findings from a Discoverability, Usability, and Readability Study. It's shared on screen now, and it's predominantly white and purple. It's divided into 3 sections, a white one, a purple one, and another white one. The first houses the introduction, definitions, and methods. The middle houses the findings, and the third has the study's significance, references, and recommended readings. It also has the QR code that you scan to get to this video. We'll move through the poster from top left to bottom right, going through each section in order. So let's get started. Music archives are where our musical knowledge is preserved and made available for use. Archival music scores are often made available as image-based files like PDFs, PNGs, or TIFFs. Now, this does 2 things. First, it presumes that every user can use an image-based file when they're not compatible with many assistive technologies. And second, it privileges a visual understanding of music that is not always the predominant way neurodivergent users interact with music. Staff notation, for example, encodes a specific visual cognitive parsing system. It requires translation into sound, and it excludes people who process sound differently. Drawing on previous work on music archive accessibility, I applied the discoverability, usability, and readability, or DUR framework, to a set of 5 music archives. So, what are discoverability, usability, and readability? For the purposes of this poster, discoverability is how easy materials are to find and how logical their discovery paths are from both internal and external search engines. Usability is how functional web pages are according to common accessibility principles or standards and the presence of multiple access points for information. And readability is how easy to read descriptive materials are according to Flesch-Kincaid grade level and reading ease scores. I analyzed 5 archival websites, which included a major music archive with 47 pages, an academic special collection with 19 pages, a small project archive with 26 pages, a large nonprofit with 26 pages, and a small nonprofit with 29 pages. I analyzed all the unique web pages and 5 iterations of any web page that used a template. Now, my findings. For discoverability, the table in the discoverability box shows logic scores, number of clicks, rankings for major search engines, including Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo, and ranking for archives' internal search engines. As you'll see, the archives analyzed for this study generally had high logic scores with an average of 3.7. The closer to 4, the better. High logic scores mean the path from a homepage to the item makes sense. Next, the number of clicks is displayed. The average is 2.1. This is a little bit harder to interpret, but generally lower is better unless the logic of the path you're clicking along is good, in which case it doesn't really matter how many clicks it takes, so long as you can understand where you're going to find something. Next, the ranking in search results for external search engines was generally low, which is good. 1 means that when you search for an item in, say, Google, it's the first search result. The average for all 3 search engines was pretty low, with Google at 1.33, Bing at 1.59, and DuckDuckGo at 1.6. None were above 2, which is great. In that final column, the internal search engines on archives websites is at 1.88, which is closer to 2, but still good. But those numbers don't tell the whole story. For the external and internal searches, you'll also see that row labeled DNA. That's short for does not appear, and that's the number of times the search for item didn't appear in the search results at all. For Google and Bing, that's 35. For DuckDuckGo, that's 22. And for the internal searches, that's only 4. So it's a fairly significant issue for the external search engines and a more or less negligible one for the internal ones. Having easy to use logical search and discovery abilities is incredibly important for neurodivergent users, both because the more logical they are, the more predictable they are, and the more likely a user is to be successful in their search for an item. So moving now to usability. To measure usability, I used a combination of an automated tool called Wave and my own analysis. The table in the usability box shows the errors, alerts, and contrast items that we've encountered. when interacting with each analyzed web page. The higher those numbers, the more usability problems the analyzed page had. I won't read each value out here, but summarizing this figure, Archive 1 by far had the most usability issues, followed by Archive 2 through 4, then Archive 5 had the least. For neurodivergent users, good usability is important because, like many, they might use or rely on assistive technologies like color filters, Zoom, text-to-speech or speech-to-text, or screen readers. But usability on its own doesn't tell the whole story either, because when users can read the page they're encountering is also really important. So to measure readability, I used a Flash Kincaid calculator and fed samples of each page's text into it. Flash Kincaid measures things like sentence length and number of syllables to determine how easy or difficult to read text is. Low Flash Kincaid grade level scores are good. High reading ease scores are good. Depending on which source you go to, best practice for readability is to achieve either a 7th grade or 5th grade reading level. As you can see here, 4 of the 5 archives analyzed didn't do that. And the 5th archive achieved a reading level just a little bit above 5th grade. Again, I won't read them all out, but overall, the Flash Kincaid scores for grade level and reading ease were higher than the recommended 5th grade average. Many neurodivergent conditions directly impact reading ability, so ensuring that our archive text elements are easily readable is incredibly important for neurodivergent users' successful engagement with archival materials. So, taken all together, these findings suggest that music archives currently privilege neuronormative ways of navigating archival materials. Scores in editable file formats, modified stave notation, and audio formats would likely help alleviate archival accessibility issues, but they're not widely available. This study also revealed a high number of color contrast issues on pages, which is important because many neurodivergent individuals have light or color contrast problems. And the materials were usually searchable from major search engines, which is useful for reducing cognitive load. Increasing how searchable record items are would also help locating archival materials be even easier. Moreover, as of April 2026, revisions to Title II of the ADA were supposed to make digital accessibility a legal requirement for most archives. That ruling has been postponed to 2027 now, but it will still be imperative for archives to meet the requirements laid out in that law. And this study has reinforced that there is a very dire need for greater attention to digital accessibility in music archives. The fact that it was carried out so close to the original implementation deadline for those Title II revisions and still found so many accessibility issues also indicates that archivists were and are unprepared for the accessibility needs of their users. Modified stave notation scores and audio files will be particularly helpful in that regard. But ultimately, making alternative score types available on music archive websites will help create more accessible music archives for all users. That work is hard. And my own research deals with that issue specifically, trying to figure out the best strategies to use to address each of the accessibility concerns I've covered so very briefly here. You can find more information on my website, where you can also find versions of this poster that are interactable, which you've probably discovered if you're watching this video. But the address is my name, Elizabeth Pinio, followed by .com. My previous work with the DUR framework is also available there, and the full write-up for this study will be posted on the publications page there too. With any questions, do please feel free to reach out at the email address listed on the homepage of my website. Thank you so very much for watching.